This is Actualize Freedom, straight talk on growing clicks and conversions on Amazon FBA from people doing it every day. Now here's your host, digital marketing acrobat, Danny Kenji Carlson.
What's up, guys? Danny Carlson here with the Actualize Freedom podcast, and today we have an 8-figure seller with us here. You guys have probably heard of him if you've been checking out YouTube videos, some seller tradecraft. We have Mr. Fernando Cruz, and he's here to talk to us about his how does an 8-figure seller do product research? How does an 8-figure seller have more than 50 employees, a lot of them overseas, and just scaling up to that level, I think takes a completely different mindset, a completely different strategy than just building your first 7-figure business, right? So this is going to be a really interesting one to dive into. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Fernando Cruz.
Thanks, Danny. I love it. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Heck yeah, man. So you're joining us here from the beautiful Los Angeles, California. Hey, do you spend a lot of time over there on the beach, or are you just working like 24 hours a day these days?
Dude, I mean, honestly, that's like the nice thing of having like an amazing team is we don't work like that crazy. I think a lot of people expect us to be working, insane amount of time. But yeah, I would say we work like a normal 40-hour week. I mean, probably even less because we do like a lot of trips and vacations. Like we'll probably be out of the country for like 2 months, 3 months out of the year. But it's not as beautiful as Bali. But yeah, I mean, I think we work like pretty normal schedule. If we're in town, sometimes we'll work from home, sometimes we'll go to the office, but it's pretty flexible. But yeah, now that it's summer, we'll definitely spend a lot more time at the beach on the weekends and stuff.
I mean, the FOMO would just be way too real if you spent too much time in the office in Los Angeles in the summer, right? So the first thing I'd like to dive into, I'm sure is a top of everyone's mind right now, is how does an 8-figure seller do product research? Because obviously you have to have some very good systems in place to continually find and launch good products, right? I'm sure it's not just you staying up to 2 a.m. on AliExpress or something like that. So let us know, like, what is the kind of process or criteria you use to find good products?
Yeah, I mean, so I think, there's a lot of great tools out there, like, everything from Jungle Scout, Viral Launch, AMZ Scout, all those guys, I think are perfect for helping you like kind of quickly go through a lot of products. The main thing that like we do specifically is this is how we teach our team, but like we teach them just to be like really focused and diligent on one, adding value, and then two, like really focused on margins. So, and what I mean by that is like, adding value is that like, look, you can create like, the best next garlic press, like, kind of like a Kickstarter campaign, but that doesn't take forever. And it's going to cost a lot of like money up front. And there's just so much that goes into it. But if you can find something that like really makes sense, like to bundle it with, then like, you're immediately adding value, you're driving up the price point, and it helps you get better margins specifically on Amazon. So like, that's the kind of like value add stuff that we do. If like, I saw one listing that was like a battery pack, and of course like that niche is specifically dominated by Anchor. Like that's not going to be an easy category to get into, but they bundled it with like an iPhone cable, which I presume is pretty cheap. It's a really natural like bundle, and I think the listing was doing, I can't remember, it's been a while now, but maybe like 10 or 20K. It's like, obviously it's not like a game changer, you're not going to like buy a new house with it, but it's like, it's really, really intuitive. It makes sense. And so we're kind of looking for those types of like value add type of bundles. And then like the second piece is like, we're really looking for like really good margins. And so we're looking at like, okay, so we estimate about like 8% for ad spend. We're, factoring in like storage costs and, the product costs, obviously freight, with the trade wars, like your tariffs, like all that kind of stuff, your FBA fees, referral fees. And once you like factor all that stuff in, we're looking at about like a 20% contribution margin, which means after all your variable expenses, we want to be able to net 28%. And that's what we use like specifically in our business. And then the last thing is just like kind of like understanding your competition, like factoring in like how many reviews do they have, like how much of a budget do you have. But yeah, I mean, ideally you're not going after like products where like the average has more than like 100 or 150 reviews on the first page, because, you know, if they have way more than that, even if you get, let's say 20 or 30 reviews in like out of the gate, it's still like, if it's a lot more than that, it's all relative, and it's going to be really hard to get a customer to buy yours over somebody else. But if you got like 80 reviews, you got 20, like it's more justified. And so we think about it in those kind of like relative terms.
That's the 80-20 principle right there, right? 80 reviews and 20 reviews.
Yeah, similar. Yeah, kind of. I like that.
Awesome. And so one thing I'd like to touch on there is the big focus on margins. So this is where I think a lot of people go wrong, is really miscalculating their margins. You mentioned that you calculate 8% for PPC, you're calculating all your variable costs in there. And I'd imagine you have a team going through and actually doing this product research. So like how do you make sure the team is actually calculating these margins correctly, especially when so many of the costs are completely variable, like, you know, shipping is going to be way different depending on what product it is. And miscalculating that can be the difference between, you know, the 10% of margin or something like that very easily, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one is, I mean, we have like the luxury of like hundreds of products. So like very easily, like at this point, having launched so many products, like I can kind of just spot check it. But even for them, like they're able to go through, look for like similar sized products in the past, and then kind of look at that to give like, to be a relative gauge. But yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is like, you know, we buffer in like a lot of what's the right way to put it? We just put in a buffer into the equation, so that like, you know, if things were to go wrong, like you mentioned, like maybe shipping is a little bit more expensive than what we originally anticipated, or like, yeah, tariffs go up, then like we're still happy with the ROI and the contribution margin that we're going to have, because we're setting it at a high bar to begin with. Where I feel like a lot of like newer business owners or new Amazon sellers, the challenge is like that they plan everything like best case scenario. It's like, okay, well, you know, this first order, it's not going to be super profitable, but you know, once I like order more, I can drive my costs down, and then it's going to be really profitable. And I think the chances are there's so many things that happen along the way that you didn't really anticipate. And that's when you get really stuck, is you make it too big of a bet too early on. And you're planning for everything to go perfectly, and then of course it's not going to. And so yeah, I would just say that we're conservative in terms of adding other, like, I guess, points, like failure points in other places, so that doesn't happen to us.
Yeah, I think that's really smart advice, because I mean, I think entrepreneurs by default have to be pretty overly optimistic, or else you wouldn't be an entrepreneur, right? So that is maybe the downfall of most entrepreneurs. Should not be going on the best case scenario all the time, because when does that ever happen? And what percentage of the time is that ever going to happen?
Totally. Yeah.
Awesome. So I think that segues really well into product launch. I mean, obviously you guys have launched hundreds of SKUs at this point, and Amazon is always changing what's working. So what has been working as of late? Because I know a lot of people are saying things don't work anymore. Like these kind of things are getting suspended. So what currently do you see working with your products?
Yeah, man, it's an awesome question. Yeah, so we read in I guess in the awesome Facebook groups in the last few weeks that a lot of like discounted sales are not working. Fortunately, we probably stopped doing like discounted sales, I don't even know, maybe 6 months, 12 months ago. So it's been a while. We found a lot of luck with like full price sales. So through like our own like Manychat funnels, through sites like Rebate Key, I think it's been really effective. Full disclosure, we launched Pixelfy maybe like 6 months ago, and that's been working really well, where we're using both like Supreme URL and the Seeker URL to basically like pixel audiences and like embed keywords, stuff like that. And then we go really hard with PPC like right out of the gate. And I think that's like a big thing where a lot of people, kind of teach like, oh, you should wait till you get like 5 reviews or 10 reviews and then But yeah, we're really focused on kind of maximizing that like honeymoon period, if you will. And so we're aggressively PPCing like right out because we want to just drive as many possible conversions, especially when we have that like kind of lower price point like coming out, like as soon as we launch. So I would say like it's kind of a combination of all those things that we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about rebates for a second, because I know that's a big point of confusion for a lot of Amazon sellers. They're like, should I give them a rebate through PayPal, an Amazon gift card? Am I going to get suspended for giving out rebates? And obviously it can be very expensive too. You're giving just a full 100% rebate to the customer. So maybe just dive into that a little bit more granularly. Like how are you actually doing the rebates?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you can do rebates like, in a pretty automated way through like a rebate key. If you're doing it manually, you could do it through like a Manychat funnel. And then, yeah, you could PayPal them or you could Facebook message them or, I don't know if that's a really like Facebook payment them as well. So yeah, there's like, a bunch of different ways to do it. Whether it's TOS compliant, I would say it's, definitely in the gray. But yeah, I mean, I think that, we often look at like what a lot of the other like bigger sellers are doing. And like, that's been like a pretty commonplace tactic. And so, yeah, we're comfortable with that risk in our business. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like, everybody else has different like, risk appetites and, they run their business like, individually based on what they think is best. But like for us, like, the growth and like, and getting those full price sales has really been effective. And from what we've seen is that we can do less giveaways at the full price than versus doing like a lot of like heavily discounted like units through like whatever, through one of the other launch services.
Awesome. And so like, can you give us an example calculation, like for example, a calculation for 90% off giveaways, you'd probably need to give away, whatever the typical sales velocity for your page one competition is for 7 to 14 days, let's say. And how does that compare with full rebate?
That's a great question. Honestly, it just depends on like the amount of keywords and like how competitive they are. But yeah, I mean, we've been structuring the campaigns a little bit longer. So like, we're not doing just like blasts. Like, yeah, we do like some like kind of initial, I guess, blasts in the onset. So like pretty heavy, like in those like, first 14 days. But then we'll also like drip in like orders for the next like 30 days or 60 days, just depending on how much we're investing in this product and like how much potential we see, and honestly like how it does in those different checkpoints. So the team is like, so we have like a whole team that's like really focused around launches, and so they're kind of monitoring the progress and then kind of adjusting based on that. And then so but yeah, I would say that like 14 days is like, the kind of the initial, and then it extends out past.
This podcast is brought to you by Kenji ROI, a complete done-for-you service for your Amazon listing creation and optimization. Everything from product photography, including lifestyle images with a real model, graphic design images and studio images, to the copywriting and keyword optimization, to videos and enhanced brand content if you're lucky enough to have brand registry. We also manage marketing when it comes to Amazon ads. And also, for some bigger sellers out there who might be interested in building a messenger list, we offer services creating the Manychat funnels to follow up with customers for more reviews, to help build your own audience so you can launch new products to help rank for new keywords. And there is Facebook ads management built into that as well for the right sellers. So if you want to learn more about Kenji ROI, head to KenjiROI.com. That is actually my middle name, Kenji, with the ROI added onto the end. Yeah, and I'd imagine the not going with the best case scenario mindset also comes in here, right? You're not just ordering exactly the amount that you think you need for the product launch and your product, and then if it doesn't actually work out that way, then you're screwed and you're out of inventory, right? You're ordering some extra buffer there, and if your calculation for the launch is a little bit wrong, you have more budget to go ahead with, continue to launch out a few more rebates and actually bolster that up, right?
Totally. Yeah. Well, so just to be clear, we don't order a ton of inventory in the beginning. Honestly, it depends on the product. It might be anywhere from like, I would say 1,000 units to like 4,000 units, just depending. But like our whole like mentality is like, we want to just test a lot. So like we're testing tons of different products, seeing which ones do well. And then even if they do run out, which like happens all the time in that initial order, then like we know which ones that we want to like expand on and like reorder. So like we launch, let's say 4 products, maybe they're all completely separate. Then like okay, like these 3 like are the winners. So like then we'll obviously reorder the inventory for those specific SKUs, but then we might like relaunch them or add more variations, whether it's in different colors, different packs or materials, whatever. It's just, we realize like, okay, this product does well, and so we're going to try to multiply that success as much as we can, as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I think that strategy is great. I mean, obviously it takes a solid chunk of capital to launch 4 products at once, but it's an ideal scenario because you're not relying on launching one product at a time. Is kind of hit or miss, right? You guys realize that not every product is going to be a winner. So you launch 4 products and one of them is going to be a winner at the very least, right? Hopefully.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily start that way. You know what I mean? I mean, and in retrospect, we did start with launching 4 products, but I think that was like pretty unwise, to be honest. But yeah, I think it's good to like launch one, kind of like see if it does well, then like ideally, learn from your mistakes, and then, try to launch the second one. But yeah, I think once you have like a pretty good understanding of what's going to do well on Amazon, how to like merchandise it, like, what things went wrong so that you can kind of adjust your kind of like profitability forecast, if you will, then I do think that that is the faster way to scale if you're trying to move really, really quickly.
Absolutely. And there's another thing that you have a ton of experience with. You have more than 50 employees. And I know that hiring, especially hiring overseas, is a really big pain point for a lot of entrepreneurs. Like a lot of people starting selling on Amazon, this is their first business. This is definitely their first experience hiring people overseas. And there's a lot of nuances to it. And it's not an easy thing to find someone who's really good overseas who's going to continue to crush it for you for a good price. Right. So what are some of the secrets that you have learned to hiring a good team through the process of a 50 employee team?
Yeah, man. That's a great question. So one I would say is setting like the right price. Like, so I have got a really good friend. So I was like, hey man, like we're crushing it. He's another e-commerce entrepreneur. And I was like, we're doing really, really well hiring in the Philippines. Like, I think you should really consider it. Most of his team was in the US. And so he was like really excited about it. And then he's like, okay, how much are you paying your employees? And we're like, oh, it depends on the role, but like, maybe more of our entry level employees are like $800. And then he's like, a month. And then he's like, oh, you could do it for way cheaper. So he ended up hiring, I don't know, 10, 15 people at like $300, $400 a month. And I mean, like, that's what you're going to get, like $300 to $400 a month, like type of employees. So like after a few months, like they're all kind of like messing up, and then he had to like let most of them go. And so like, I don't think you should use the same kind of like spray and pray, like tactic, like that we do with products with hiring. Like, I think you should like, pay like, and it's really one of those things that you get what you pay for. And I think just because, you can hire someone, let's say $800 a month or $1,000 a month in the Philippines, like don't have like the expectation that they're like that quality, like in the US, for instance, like that relative quality in the US, because I think that was kind of in the beginning, like we were kind of too lax about it. And so we had like kind of low, like, oh, okay, well, we're only paying this person $800. So like, this is a good value, but like, you should be like excited about hiring this person because they're going to actually solve problems for you. And if they're not in that like place, then you probably made the right or the wrong hire. And so I would say like, those are kind of like some of the guiding like principles, is that like both Nick, like my business partner, and I like should be excited about placing an offer. Like, you know what I mean? Like they're asking for $1,000, like then we are comfortable because we know that they're going to immediately add $2,000 in value or $3,000. And then, dude, honestly, like, you get those first few hires, you'll make some mistakes. We made a ton, I'm sure. But like, you get better about it over time, and then you really start like fully delegating. I think that's where, at least from my like anecdotal experience of the Amazon industry, is a lot of people like micromanaging. They like being in the weeds. They like, I don't know, like fucking answering their customer support tickets, which makes no sense to me. But like, when you really learn how to like delegate and manage effectively through like initiatives and things like that, that's when you really scale. Like, I think it's when you start really like letting go, because you hire people that are better than you at that specific task.
Yeah, let's dive more into that, because that, I think, is the real key to hiring people. And it's a lesson that I've learned the hard way, for sure. And I think it's very, very common for people who are building teams, right? A really good analogy is if you are just like if you're micromanaging too much, you're basically like the genius with 5 arms, right? It's like you are making all the decisions, and then all of your employees are just an arm, and they have to come back to you for every single decision. And now all you do is make decisions for all of your employees all day, right? That's not effective. Whereas what you're saying is you are setting a specific role for each person, and they are responsible for the things that are in their role. And, they hopefully don't need to come to you very often to have you make decisions. They can just manage and be responsible for that role, right? So what are some things that you do to really build that in your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it depends on the role. I would say again, like, it comes down to hiring the right person. Like, for instance, we hired like an inventory planner like pretty early on, like when we were like really starting to scale. And honestly, like, he'd already been in inventory planning for at least probably like 4 or 5 years. And like, he was way more knowledgeable about it than we were. So like there's very little like advice that I could actually give him, because he's been like an inventory planner for 5 years. Like, at my best, like, I spent like 5% of my time doing it. You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I understand Excel. Like, I'm like a decently smart guy, but like, he's way more familiar with Excel. Like, his spreadsheets are beautiful. Honestly, like, they're like really, really nice. And so like, there's not very much value that I can add. Like, I mean, I can talk through things and be like, okay, well, here's like where I would check for seasonality of this specific product, and like, maybe like using Keepa or whatever. But like, there's not a ton of value that I can add. And like, now I'm not even involved in those meetings at all. Like, and so I think it's really about hiring the right people that can do that. And so some things like it's gonna be hard. Like, so like product development, for instance, like, we have a pretty unique way of doing it. Like, I don't think that, at least anecdotally, that like we're gonna be able to bring somebody in and then they're gonna choose like products exactly like that we would. And so that, like, really just comes down to like setting, like, trying to set up like good like guidelines, really coaching the team. I think, one of the big things that like I've personally had to learn is just not like immediately answering the question for the employee immediately, but being like, okay, well, like, what do you think? And like, why? And then why? And then just like going deeper until it actually starts making sense, where like we're answering the same way, or maybe sometimes they think like they come up with a better approach than I would have. And so I think that's like kind of what we do.
Yeah, I really love that last tip, especially. And that's something I've started to do as well, is not solving the problem for them, but just assisting them in solving the problem. Like you said, just helping them work through it, so that next time they'll be able to work through it. Because if you just go in and fix the problem for them, like they say, oh, I can't figure this out, and you just like, okay, I'll do it, they don't learn anything. They're going to come to you again next time that same problem happens. That defeats the purpose of hiring employees, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, almost even like being like a therapist. You know what I mean? You're here like just to listen, ideally, and then hopefully guide them into the right direction. But just like trying to ask the right questions so that they're learning on their own. Because otherwise, you're spot on. Like, they're going to keep coming back to you, and that's obviously not the ideal if you're trying to remove yourself from the day-to-day decision making.
Yeah, and when it comes to overseas employees, a lot of people think of only general virtual assistants or graphic designers and just like these really kind of low end roles. But I'm sure you have people in much more important roles too, right? That's something that people don't realize. You can find a really wide variety of really skilled people, especially in the Philippines. And so, what are some of the like higher end roles that you hire for?
Yeah, man. I mean, like everything that you could think of. Like, yeah, we got someone in charge of new products, marketing, finance and accounting managers, like business intelligence, like everything that you would think of in like a pretty like large scale company. We try to build it out overseas, and that's worked really well for us. And yeah, I think basically, yeah, like recruiting, all that kind of stuff, like supply chain, of course. Yeah, I mean, you're totally right. There's a ton of talent in the Philippines, and a lot of them want to work from home. And so I feel like that's where we've really found like amazing talent. And we do have some like other countries as well. But yeah, that's kind of how we've approached it.
Okay, and you mentioned that they work from home too. So I'd imagine that it's a totally distributed team. They're not in some big office somewhere, right?
Right.
Um, with that many employees, the communication just becomes a whole monster in itself. Are you guys using
Right.
Slack, or like how are you guys communicating and staying on track?
Yeah, so we use Slack, yeah, for normal conversation. We also use Zoom, which is great for like video recording. I think, yeah, that was one of the big shifts that we did at the end of last year, which was like actually requiring for calls to be video. And so I think it's really helpful in terms of like the emotional side of like building like a relationship with more colleagues and actually getting that face-to-face interaction. And then you can actually read in, expressions, which I think is big. So yeah, we do a lot of video calling. For task management, we use GetFlow. I know a lot of people really like Asana and ClickUp. I'm sure they're great too, but that's just what worked for us. But yeah, that's a lot of the stuff that we use.
GetFlow and like all that together, it keeps everyone actually on track and everyone can work from home. That's a very good one. We use actually pretty much the same setup. We use Zoom for you have your daily stand-up meetings with the core team, and then some weekly meetings with other team members, and then just Slack for regular communication channels. I think that's it's super important to have those systems in place with a completely remote team, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're like, I hope everything's going good over there, and this person's working on the same thing as the other person or something like that. Can turn into a
Right.
nightmare real fast.
Yeah, actually, one of the big things that we did was like kind of this is a recent thing that we did through like our CEO coach, which has been really helpful. But it's just like kind of aligning the team towards initiatives. So we try to have like 3 initiatives per team, and then we break out each initiative into like specific like tasks with a kind of like timeline, and there's like an assignee to each one, and then there's also like each like kind of task needs to be like measurable with like a specific outcome tied to it. So this is how when it's done, and then that way like we can manage all of our leaders through that like basically like Google spreadsheet that's super clear. Like, okay, these are the 3 initiatives. Like the VP or whoever is like in charge of like those 3 initiatives getting done, and then they have their teams that kind of cascade down, and then they know who's responsible for each part of that initiative. And so that's like a really helpful way. I think it's kind of based off like EOS, like the or Traction, the book. But yeah, that's been something that's really helped us as well in terms of like staying organized and kind of being able to hold the leaders accountable who hold their teams accountable.
Yeah, I just want to back up that book that you just mentioned, Traction. I've been working with a mentor over the last 6 or 8 months or so, specifically going through that book. Most of the material that I've been working on, very, very helpful. And I know lots of other people who have gotten a lot of value from that book, Traction. So I feel like if you are at that point in your business where you are starting to really build out a team and like this book will save you years of your life, basically. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
totally, man.
So Fernando, I think there's one more thing that I'd be remiss. The audience would be mad at me if I didn't ask you about the Manychat stuff. It's just one of these things that everyone knows that they should be doing. And a lot of people, they're just overwhelmed by it. It can be complicated, right? So, maybe in what ways are you currently seeing Manychat being a really good asset for your business?
Oh man, truthfully, like I don't use Manychat for our team. Dude, I mean, yeah, maybe like, yeah, you should like talk to like Nick, or we could do like maybe a follow up with Nick. I think he knows Manychat way better, to be honest, than I do, because yeah, he's more in the day to day. So honestly, I'd be like speaking super generically, and I truthfully don't know very well.
Yeah, no, I'd love to have Nick on and talk about that more. We've had on a few Manychat experts, and people just can't get enough of the Manychat stuff for
Yeah,
good reason, right?
man. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like we have like yeah, I mean, I guess this part I can speak well on is that like, yeah, Nick and I are like really good at like dividing and conquering. And so, yeah, he's like, more focused on like that area of like, of a lot of like the launching, the Manychat funnels and like all that kind of piece. And I'm focused on like a lot of the other stuff. So yeah, truthfully, it's not an area that I know really well.
Yeah, and so what is most of your role in the company? Because this is a very interesting question to me always in a company of this size. Like, you have employees doing all the regular day-to-day stuff, and so you can focus on the more visionary stuff, the setting strategy and stuff like that. Like, what does a typical kind of workload look like for Fernando?
Oh man, dude, I have so many one-on-ones and so many meetings. Yeah, that's one of the next steps, is trying to consolidate leadership so that I have like less one-on-ones. But yeah, man, like typical day, honestly, a lot of it right now is doing a lot of interviews. And so even though we have like an amazing recruiting team, but yeah, like right now we're looking to hire like either a COO or like a president. So I probably do 2 interviews a day, like just talking to potential candidates for that. But yeah, like what teams roll up to me is like, the new products team rolls up to me, finance, HR, business intel, yeah, retail, like our retail division. Yeah, like a bunch of different like teams will roll up to me. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say like my like primary focus is just like making sure that we have like ideally enough like cash so that we can launch enough products so that we can like really grow. Like I think I'm all about growth all day. And then thinking about like what people we need to help us hit like 100 million. Like that's kind of, and making sure that we fill those spots. Like that's kind of what I do on a more day to day.
I love it. You heard it here first, guys. 100 million. Fernando's gunning for it.
Yeah.
Next time we have Fernando on here, it's going to be the 9-figure seller. Love that ambition, man.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, it's been super, super good having you on here. I know there's a ton of golden nuggets in here that the audience is going to be diving into. My last question for you, Fernando, where do you see the trend of Amazon e-commerce going in the coming year?
Oh man, in the coming year, that is a good question. Honestly, I think Amazon is quickly catching up in terms of a lot of the hacks that used to work. Like like the storefront URL and all that kind of stuff no longer like works, and like discounted sales no longer works, and like so I think they're closing a lot of like loopholes. And so I do think that the people that are better at marketing, so whether it's through Manychat or like Pixelfy or whatever strategy that they use, I think they will have like an upper hand. So like if you came from like the affiliate space, or you're really good with Facebook ads, for instance, I do think that it's going to go like a kind of a shift from the people that were really early and like got like, easy reviews. And I think they're going to start to have like more of a challenge. And then where like now the people that are better marketers are going to start doing better. And so I would say that's where it's going to be interesting. Like, yeah, I think competition will heat up. And I think that like, and it does not mean necessarily like a 12-month timeline, but maybe like 3 to 5 years. I would say that there's going to be like a big kind of consolidation, I would assume, in terms of like the amount of companies. So like if you haven't started selling, I think like right now is an amazing time, like no better day than today, because I do foresee in the next few years that like the big companies will just kind of like gobble up the small companies and it'll just become more consolidated. That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, it happens in every single industry, right? It happened in retail. It's already kind of happening in Amazon e-commerce, and that for sure is going to happen. Companies like yourself, you're going to gobble up everyone's margins, and you're going to turn into a giant billion-dollar conglomerate company.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I mean, it has happened in other industries. Like I do think that it is like where I think at just a certain point it gets hard to compete. So yeah, I do think that it is. I do think that honestly, it's still a really good time. Like yeah, my friends ask me all the time whether I would still do it, and I really would start over today if I had to. I do think it's a great industry, and yeah, man, I think there's still so much room left. Like I mean, we're playing in the U.S. market, but like there's also Canada and EU and just so much stuff going on. I probably wouldn't do Australia or Mexico yet, but like that doesn't mean in like that 3 to 5 year timeline that those won't be like amazing markets.
No, absolutely. And just before we touch off here, you mentioned Pixelfy Me a few times, which is a tool that you're involved in. I personally use it. Anthony from Seller Trade Caps has been on this podcast. He's also involved with that. Can you just speak a little bit about what that tool does and why it might be useful?
Yeah, man. It's a really awesome tool. Like specifically, so a lot of the time, people are asking like they ask us like literally like every day, like what URL should I be sending people to? And so basically, we partnered with Leo, who created like Zon Pages, Zon Jump, Rebate Key, and basically through his tens of thousands of launches, he has so much data on what works. And so he's created a lot of the best URLs specifically for getting your products ranked on Amazon. Yeah, it's for sure a little bit in the gray, so it's kind of up to you, but like we use it in every single one of our launches. It's super, super effective. But yeah, so you're able to one link shorten, very much like a bit.ly, so that it just looks cleaner. You're also able to pixel your audience, which is really nice. So like you can use it like in conjunction with like Rebate Key or some or your Manychat funnel. Then you can pixel the audience so that you can easily remarket them or send them back into like some type of automation or funnel. And then you're also able to like really just optimize like the link specifically towards the Amazon community. So like, or seller community. So you could do embed keywords. You can like rotate out ASINs if you want. You can do like add to cart. You can do search, find, buy. Like basically whatever you would want is like, it's the most powerful like link creation software out there right now. And a lot of what we're adding is going to be basically tools to help you build out your off Amazon audience. Like kind of like what I was alluding to, like what I think, where I think things are moving. It's like, I think the best marketers are going to win. Like we're basically building a tool to help people become better marketers. That's the kind of vision.
Awesome. Yeah. And honestly, like I use this tool, guys. It's a great tool, especially in the context of Amazon, but you should be pixeling your links if you're putting it anywhere off of Amazon. Otherwise, you're just wasting an opportunity to remarket people, right? Definitely useful. So awesome, Fernando. Been really good having you on here. And if people want to reach out to you or learn more about what you do, where can they reach out to you online?
I'm pretty active in the Seller Tradecraft group. If you have any specific questions, feel free to reach out to me, Fernando@sellertradecraft.com. I'm happy to try to point you in the right direction if I can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. And until next time, guys, take care. And if you want to see the show notes, you can find those on actualizefreedom.com or kenjiroi.com/blog. And if you guys haven't already, if I can ask, you go leave a review on iTunes. Let me know what you think about this awesome podcast with Fernando and any of the other ones you guys may have listened to. Really appreciate your feedback. I don't want Jeff Bezos coming after me for incentivized reviews, so leave a 1-star review if you want. I don't care. Just leave one, okay? All right. Cheers, guys. Until next time, take care. This podcast is sponsored by the Helium 10 suite of tools, and we at Kenji ROI have been using Helium 10 for more than 3 years now. They have so many tools packed into one, I don't think that there's a better value, and we use it all the time for ourselves and our clients, so we can actually recommend it from real experience. We use their keyword tracker to see how our product launches are doing, the keyword indexing tool to ensure that you're actually showing up for your main keywords. Super, super important step right there. And also Magnet and Cerebro, a really powerful combination for finding keywords your competitors are using or just finding new keywords to put into your listing in general. You should be using this on at least a monthly basis to see if any new keywords are coming up, because new searches are coming up all the time, guys. Like, people are searching on Google. I forget the number, but a huge percentage of those searches are brand new, never been done searches. So if you guys want a discount code, you can use 50 Kenji ROI for 50% off your first month of Helium 10, or 10 Kenji ROI for 10% off for life. So that's a pretty good discount. You might as well. We use them and recommend them for years. So if you guys need that, you guys will definitely get good value out of Helium 10.
For show notes and resources mentioned in this episode, visit kenjiroi.com.